Hello, everyone. My name is Wong from the North Carolina Department of Commerce's Labor and Economic Analysis Division, or LEAD for short. Today, I'll be presenting on the labor market of the Southeast PZ. Just a brief description of LEAD if you're not familiar. We are the state's labor market information workshop. If this sounds broad, that's intentional. We produce data, we do program evaluation and big data analysis, we produce economic and policy analysis, and we make the data accessible via publications, websites, and tools. With that out of the way, let me take you through the data today. I'll start with the current state of the labor market, proceed to discuss the implications for job seekers and employers, and end on some things to consider for the future. As we all experienced, the COVID-19 pandemic severely impacted the US economy, with North Carolina as no exception. I'm pleased to share the data suggests employment has more than fully recovered. From the second quarter of 2019, before the pandemic, to the second quarter of 2023, the region has seen a 6.3% increase in the number of jobs, or slightly more than 23,600 jobs. At the county level, this trend of increase holds true except for Wayne County, which is most of the way to the pre-pandemic level. Okay, so the jobs numbers have bounced back since COVID, but what about people? Are the people who want to work working? Our most recent data suggests that, compared to other December unemployment rates, the Southeast PZ unemployment rate is at its lowest point since we began measuring in 1991, even lower than before the pandemic in December of 2019. I don't have a chart to show it here, but the data at the county level reflects the same trend for all counties but Pamlico and New Hanover, whose unemployment rates are still historically low in context of the history. So, the data shows that the economy has bounced back from COVID and we're at a very low unemployment rate. Will it continue to be good for workers? For instance, is the region continuing to add jobs? Relative to when we started measuring job openings at the regional level in January of 2020, we are continuing to see more job openings in the region according to our data, though this is slowing down some. However, interestingly, we are also seeing fewer job seekers relative to that time, 2.5% less to be exact. Job openings are up while job seekers are slightly down. In practical terms, this means that job seekers have a comparatively easy time finding jobs as job seekers face less competition from other job seekers. Conversely, this means that employers are having a harder time filling positions. This situation is what economists call a tight labor market. Compared to the start of the data in January 2020, the most recent job seekers per job opening ratio is lower, though it is slightly higher than earlier on in 2023. Something to note is that while the labor market appears to be slightly loosening, so that's that number increasing slightly, demographic trends suggest that employers should be prepared for the tightness to continue. More specifically, the population growth rate in the region has been declining and is projected to continue to do so, and the proportion of those 65 and older in the population has been increasing and is projected to continue to do so. All things equal, this means the working age population will be gradually decreasing over time. Finally, to close out my description of the current labor market, I'd like to point out two things. First, tightness is not the same across all career clusters. From 2020 to 2022, 9 out of the 16 career clusters faced looser labor markets compared to the regional level. This may be one reason why workers report different experiences looking for jobs in the labor market. Everybody faces different levels of competition against other job seekers. Secondly, employers have responded to changing conditions by adding or expanding benefits, such as paid leave and health insurance. By many measures, the Southeast Prosperity Zone labor market has been healthy and even favorable to workers, especially when compared to pre-pandemic conditions. What should we expect in the future then, aside from the aforementioned shrinking of the working population? When we look at industry projections through 2030, we expect a net growth of 30,000 new jobs, led by accommodation and food services and healthcare and social assistance. Of note is that this figure does not include job announcements. We can also expect over 2,700 new jobs from companies that have made announcements in the last 2 years about bringing their businesses to the region. In addition to industry projections and business announcements, we also have occupation-specific projections. In North Carolina, we assign a star rating to occupations, creating an aggregate measure from their most recent average wage, their projected growth rate through 2030, and the anticipated number of job openings from 2021 to 2030. The closer to 5 stars, the better the long-term prospects. These ratings are produced across sub-prosperity zone regions, which in the Southeast PZ's case include Jacksonville, New Bern, Wilmington, and Goldsboro, Kinston. The sub-PZ includes 78 5-star jobs with 18 common occupations across all 3 subregions. Some of them are included in the list to the right. Of note is that there are 5-star jobs in every career cluster, and 83% of these promising occupations require post-secondary education at a minimum, according to the BLS. In other words, our data reinforces the importance of higher education for better paying jobs across all knowledge and skill domains. Wrapping this all up, I'd like to talk not just about what to expect across the next 10 years, but some strategic approaches to the labor market challenges ahead. After all, as I mentioned previously, we can't count on the overall population to grow as we used to. One way to address this is to bring more folks into the workforce through historically disadvantaged and overlooked populations, such as those of lower income and those who are involved in the criminal justice system. By training and educating these groups, we can effectively grow the workforce from the existing labor pool. Next, we could also look to better align regional education and in-demand occupations. One common difficulty in hiring is that workers don't already have the skills they need to work right away, especially in higher paying careers. Improving our alignment reduces this friction, and currently the Southeast PZ is the least aligned in health sciences. Let me explain. Ideally, the share of job openings requiring post-secondary education matches the share of post-secondary credentials for any given career clusters. In the Southeast PZ, the data shows that while 34% of health science job openings require some form of post-secondary education, only 16% of the credentials in the region are related to this field. Amending this gap would help to make sure the workforce stays relevant to local needs, especially in the face of recent Medicaid expansion and the growth of the share of the elderly population. To continue tracking program outcome data, including employment and wages of graduates, you can use nctower.com. Finally, regional leaders should keep in mind that workers are more willing to travel within the region or take on remote work now than ever. The data shows that across the last 20 years, counties in the Southeast PZ have seen a substantial increase in their share of residents commuting to work in another county. In fact, half of them have more workers commuting out of than working in their residential county. Also, work from home shares have ramped up across the same period. Looking at the available data for the MSAs that correspond to this region, from 2010 to 2022, Goldsboro's share of remote workers increased from roughly 2% to 5%, New Bern's share from roughly 2% to roughly 10%, and Wilmington's from 4% to about 16%. In other words, workers are taking advantage of transportation and broadband to access greater employment opportunities, and businesses and economic developers should change their expectations and strategies accordingly. This marks the end of my presentation, so I'd like to do some quick plugs. If you'd like to continue to explore more labor market information, there's 2 recommendations I have. One is nccareers.org, which is a one-stop shop with career information both at the state and regional level. This site doesn't just include occupational profiles, but also career exploration tools and guides, as well as resources for instructors and counselors. Another one is analytics.ncommerce.com, which contains links to our various Tableau dashboard products such as regional economic dashboards. You can also sign up for our newsletters on that site or via the QR code on this slide. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, and thank you, Cecilia and the My Future NC team for the invitation to present today.